classification of mineral resources. Even though extraction of critical raw materials from mining is a comparatively small part of the EU economy, it is substantially important for the mining countries, and consumption of raw materials is a huge part of the economy. As an example, in Sweden, mining represents 1 to 3% of gross domestic product, depending on how widely it's being counted. About 8% of all exports and between 13 to 20% of annual investments. And it's similar in Finland, Poland, Portugal, and Spain. And it might sound not so important for the EU, but in times of economic crisis, it helps the EU because some of these countries will have an easier way through economic hard times. The investments, they are depending upon the economic risks of a mining project or exploration project. We see here on the right how the exploration that goes on from geologists in the field to drilling and creation of an ore model. And this is an iterative process because it builds up over a long time period. It could be 5 to 10 years easily for an exploration project before it's finished. So therefore, the economy viability, it considers the whole mining cycle from exploration to building up the mine, operating the mine, closure of the mine, and rehabilitation of the area. So how does this then connect to the instruments that are being used for assessing the economic value? The CRIRSCO is a reporting standard, and UNFC is another classification of natural resources. The industry has developed the CRIRSCO in order to see that the resource is adequate, that is described correctly, and that there is economy in the project in order to invest for a mine. The CRIRSCO standards, they're international. They've been agreed by worldwide, more or less today, particularly in the Western world, Africa. They're used also South America, large parts of Asia. And the reason for them that they were developed was that there was a big fraud in Indonesia called the BRIEX project in the 90s, where there was a deposit where it was actually so-called salt. That means that they put out samples of gold-rich ore, which they showed to investors, making them to believe that it was a huge deposit of gold, extremely valuable. So, as we said, this is an important part of economic evaluation and transparency in the process also, so that the investors know that this process has been properly done. And it builds up on that it's a wide range of methods to be used, both economically as well as geological, geophysical investigations and model and statistics determining the size and value of the deposit. So in order we have the CRIRSCO template. In Europe, the main code today is the PERC code, which is the Pan-European Reporting Code. And there are additional codes that are actually also used by some companies in Europe, and they are mainly the York Code of Australia and the NI 43101 of Canada. So here on the right, we see an example of an ore body of a small underground mine in south-central Sweden. here is a map of who has, where do we have adaptations of CRIRSCO into local codes adapted to the local regime and legislation. So we can see it's on all continents except for maybe Antarctica and in wide use. So we said that there is a need for a competent person to sign off on the results of the CRIRSCO. And the competent person is necessary in order to evaluate that the grade, the tonnage, and the reliability of the resource has been properly made. And a competent person is a professional in the minerals industry that has a minimum of 5 years of relevant experience, recognized by a professional organization in the style of mineralization or type of mineral deposits being evaluated, and in his specific field of expertise. Relevant experience, the knowledge and ability to carry out the tasks and duties needed to evaluate a specific style of mineralization. A mineralization, an anomalous concentration of minerals, well delimited from other geology. A mineral deposit then, an anomalous concentration of mineral due to process that could be potentially extracted economically. And what is an ore then? The ore, that is a mineral deposit that can be extracted economically. The role of the competent person in the mining sector involves multiple tasks and competences necessary. So here it's been coupled with the UNFC, but this is not necessary for the PERC evaluation. It is only when there is a bridging to UNFC. Now, what is an exploration target? It's an informative estimate of the quantity, content, and/or quality of a mineralized area. Therefore, its exploration potential, but for which there has been insufficient work to estimate mineral resource. So we'll soon come to what is a mineral resource in more strict definition. The results from the exploration is the data and information generated by collecting geological data, geophysical data, geochemical data, that is the chemical content of soil and rock. And this is necessary to show the investors that the results are accessible and transparent and can be traced how the work has been done. Then there are modifying factors. There are technical, economical, legal, and social political considerations to convert mineral resources to something called reserves. So what is the difference between a mineral resource? A mineral resource is the part that one knows has a certain degree of grade and tonnage with a certain degree of confidence. The mineral resource is something that has all of these factors, but it can also be economically extracted with profit. So from the exploration, one goes to the pre-feasibility study to feasibility study. And there, in the feasibility study, then we do have the potential of determining if we have a reserve or not. That is, that it technically can be recovered and that the costs are reasonable for making profit of the ore. So, specifically more about the mineral resource. The marine mineral resource classes are inferred resource, which has more indirect evidence of it. The indicated resource, adequate, detailed, and reliable exploration sampling to assume geological and grade or quality continuity. But it's not proven, it's not shown, it's assumed. Measured resource, part minerals resource with highly detailed exploration sampling, testing, and we have a confirmation of geology and grade and quality and the continuity of it. So let's have a look at the economic value then of a resource. So what we see here on the left is actually that we have a figure up on the left where we have 3 graphs. We have one which is black, one which is red, one which is green. And the black actually shows, one can say, the volume of the resource. And then there is a probability on the left. But the important thing is that we have a mineral deposit which can be quite large. But then we make an investigation and see how much of this is technically recoverable. And that is usually much less. So therefore, the red graph goes to the left compared to the black. That means we got smaller volume. And then we put in the economy that we can mine with good economy. And then we get even smaller volume. And this may change because we may improve upon the methods of recovery and or that the value of the commodity that is the resource that we want to extract and sell is actually increasing. And we can take as an example is that copper has changed in price from, say, 6,000 euros per ton in the past 6-7 years to currently, right now, 2025, it is about 10,000 euros per ton. And then the mineral reserve, that's a part of mineral, as we said, likely to be extracted economically under current conditions and available technology. And in order to decrease the risks here is that the company, when they make these examples or these calculations rather, is that they have a look at not the full value of how much the commodity costs currently, but they take only 2/3 because there are always unknowns, the price fluctuates, so they must be sure that they can keep the company safe and sound going throughout even downturns when the prices are decreasing. And this happens regularly. They're not increasing the whole time. And then on the mineral reserve, we have 2 types of reserves. We have probable reserves and we have proven reserves. And the probable, it's a mineral resource with moderate probability of economic recovery. And the proven reserves with a high probability of economic recovery. And then going back to investments then. So these unified evaluation standards that we have through the CRIRSCO templates, PERC, as in case of Europe, combined with guidelines so that the investors will know exactly how is the legal procedure in the specific country ongoing. So it's important with transparency towards the investors who provide the capital for developing the company and running the company. And there are a complex interplay between the geology, the technology of recovery, running the mine, and the economic and social factors, and the intensity of capital that is needed in the different parts of the process. And it's a high-risk venture, which can pay back quite a lot of money, but there is a high risk that it will fail also, because most exploration projects do not end up in the mine. Mineral deposits, they must meet high standards of quality. Quality is defined as the relative simplicity and predictability of the natural factors, efficiency and the reliability of the technical solutions for extractions, profitability and favorable economic and social environment. Efficiency and reliability of technical solutions must include environmental criteria to reduce potential costs and liabilities. Inclusion of land use and social criteria further affect economic and social environment favorably. Now, we have one more instrument that we mentioned here in the beginning, that is the UNFC. And that's a global system that was built to report on natural resources. Gas and oil was one of the first applications for it. Generally speaking, what the UNFC does, it tells you what stage is the project, how reliable are the estimates of the resource, and how likely is it that it will be developed. So the g-axis describes the degree of confidence of the resource and how well we know the details of the resource. The f-axis, that is the level of technical maturity. And the e-axis, that is the environmental socio-economic viability. That is normally coupled together with stage of the permitting. And here, the different parts can be a little bit different from country to country, because the permitting, which use so-called modifying factors, they may kick in at different levels here, depending on at what level is it necessary to have, say, an environmental permit. And it is currently mandatory for reporting in the Critical Raw Materials Act, and when a company applies for a strategic project under the Critical Raw Materials Act. So, further information can be found about CRIRSCO, about UNFC, that we refer the students to find it here. Also a vocabulary as well as a quiz. So we wish the student good luck with the questions. Thank you.